Welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff here with co-host Chip. Chip, what's going on? Man, it's good to see you. Good to see you here.
Good to be seen.
As always, man, this was a outstanding weekend. Haven't seen you since before Thanksgiving. And now things are heating up in the crypto asset space. So we've got some news to cover on Ripple XRP. Some really great tweets from John Deaton. I went over the timeline, the crypto timeline with Deaton. I ended up at 2018. So want to dig into that a little bit. But overall, this is the race to regulatory clarity. It's not just here in the US, it's all over the world. Who's going to be number one? Who's going to get there first? Because there are some countries that are lightning years ahead of where we're at right here in the US. And they're licking their chops. They say, hey, you know what? You guys pass all sorts of anti-clarity bills that you want over in the US because you're just going to push all those great minds over to our countries. So with that, Chip, man, there's a lot going on. I know you're pulling some up. We're going to give someone a shout out as soon as we get started. But Chip, if you're ready,
let's do
I'm going to kick this thing off. Go ahead. Let's kick it off. Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
And welcome to On the Chain. Do you want to say something in there first, Jeff?
Welcome to On the Chain.
Welcome to On the Chain. And also, I wanted to do a big shout out. Jeff and I want to do a big shout out to Sir John, who is in the chat. And it's good to see him back. And I was chatting with him today via DM, and it's good to see an OTC family member on the mend. Of course, he had the beer flu, and this was a picture of him that I asked if I could share on the stream. He said yes, but there he is right there. That was him in recovery, and he was only in the ER for just a little bit of time. So he got some good stuff, and he's on the mend. And good to see you, man. Good to see you in the chat, back where you belong. OTC family member. So yeah, good to see you, Sir John.
Back on his feet.
Back on his feet.
There he is. He's still awake too.
That is,
and he's here. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning over there, and he's wide awake. Chip.
You can tell he's on the mend. Otherwise, he'd been sleeping right through it for 2 days, right? I know when I had it, man. Sleep was like really one of the greatest things that I was good at doing, and it was like, but I was glad to be through it and glad to be over it, and glad to have the massive.
Chip, Catherine's at work in the office, so she can't stay. Said have a great week. She's tuning in briefly to say what's up. So appreciate that.
Listen to it.
Appreciate you coming
back
in.
At home. You don't have to see
got Australia in the house here because we've got XRP 369 Australia. Good day, lads from Australia. Check it out. So, man, all sorts of cool stuff. And we got El Jefe back in the Punta Gorda.
What's up, Punta Gorda?
We got Brizzy, Australia. Why don't you guys all just shout out where you're tuning in from? Shout out the time it is as well. I'd love to just get an idea what time it is everywhere.
That's a really
so you don't even have to shout out where you're at, just the time.
Look at this, Rob McDermott, a long time OTC OG there. And you look at it, Rob McDermott, glad you're back, Sir John. I'm sure everybody feels the same way. Sir John, great to see you all there. Yeah, man. I'm worried for you. I was communicating with you pretty often, but singing again soon.
Yeah, don't worry, Sir John. He'll be back singing.
We have a new tune. It's just I've been waiting to play it. Maybe not tonight, but we will play the tune. And it's a brand new tune from Sir John, and we'll be debuting that one here too as well. But it's not, it probably won't be tonight. But
do you have to put a little instrumental behind it?
No. Well, no. It's no. We're in good shape. So check out that 8:10 a.m. right there.
Wow, we've got Mark coming in from 10 a.m.
Vegas is 5. Toronto's the same time. Yep.
Dude, how's it? It's 2 p.m. in New Zealand.
Look, it's 2:08 a.m. in Norway, Jeff.
That's right.
It's incredible.
Norway, and now Norway's getting ready to go into their permanent winter, where this is like the midnight skies they're approaching, where they're going to have almost no daylight.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The midnight sun.
That's right.
Yeah, right. That's
awesome.
They get a little bit of that in Norway, don't you? I know in Iceland you get that, but I thought in Norway they start their days start shrinking down as you get into wintertime. So, all right, man. So Chip, on Saturday, I started out and I was going through this crypto timeline, and I thought this crypto timeline was really cool because in this crypto timeline, they really dug into and had multiple videos in this whole in this history, and it was great. I left off 2018, but there were some really solid points that were being made.
There's a sneeze. Hit the sneeze button.
I hit the sneeze button.
Good. Hit the
And it
sneeze
got
button.
dark. Look how dark it got when I sneezed.
Oh, it's weird, Jeff. A lot of weird.
Isn't that weird? It was
sorcery
weird. All of a
going on
sudden,
over
like the lighting went out. It's like,
sometimes the lighting gets weird. You never know, man. It's always a crapshoot, really.
That was very strange. But I wanted to bring this up just real quick here. Let's see. Here we are.
Okay, go ahead and throw it up there, Jeff. Let's do this.
All right, let's do this, Chip.
Let's do it.
Just as a brief recap, 2013, we had Vitalik in the BitSpace 360. They were starting to talk a little bit about the Ethereum IPO or ICO. Joseph Lubin gets into the meetup, talks a little bit about a little more, and he's talking about having some like secret drops, more private, so you can have multiple identities and hidden, so nobody knows who's buying. Then Vitalik is doubling down on this idea that the currency inside of Ethereum is sort of like XRP and Ripple. And then we kind of dig down a little bit further into 17. This is when Jay Clayton is in front of the Senate Banking Committee, and Elizabeth Warren, of all people, questions him on involvement with his previous law firm during the confirmation. And then
but it's even more than that, Jeff. It's even more than that, though. One of the specific questions she asked is, why didn't he recuse himself because of his old law firm that would potentially benefit from that? And it's like, of all people, hits it right on, nailed it, really. I mean, quite honestly.
Of all people asking the question.
Right. They asked some really good questions there. It's like, well, what were you doing? Why didn't you recuse yourself? And we've come to learn that 3-2 vote, he broke party lines and voted. But we knew this all along. Do we need confirmation of it? I think we already
No. Did. Yeah, and then that brought us into consensus. This was Matt Corva was talking about Joseph Lubin's company, Consensus. And then that was a client of Sullivan and Cromwell, which was Jay Clayton's law firm. And so then there was this alliance with the blockchain companies and all these things that Matt Corva was talking about, which brought us up to 2018, which is Joseph Grunfest and Jay Clayton, Stanford Law Rock Center for Corporate Governance. And this is former SEC Chair Grunfest says to Jay Clayton, you've gone after only 3 ICOs where there are hundreds that look almost identical. And the big question there, Chip, was why? Why only 3 of them? Jay Clayton responds and says, I think that the 3 offerings we've gone after, this is kind of where we left off, in the 21A report, make it pretty clear to people what we think is permissible and not permissible.
My goodness.
I find that is a little bit shocking because it's like Jay Clayton is saying, hey, there's clarity, just like Gary Gensler is saying there's clarity, when everybody else in the world is saying, what are you talking about? What clarity?
Well, there's no clarity, so there can be no enforcement. That's the whole thing. But I think the last person who's going to get that and will know that will be Gary, the MIT, I should say, professor, former adjunct professor over at MIT. He'd be the last one to know. We already know. We already all know.
That's right. And this is then following. I like this. So here we have some follow-up in 2018. This is really where the tide began to turn also with the SEC focus, I think, more on Ripple than what's going on with XRP, which is Brad Garlinghouse, March 2012. I had played this. He's talking about how they've added 100 customers and they're going after Swift.
Yeah.
Chip, I think this was a major turning point, March 12th, 2018, where I'm sure Swift already knew, but it came out on Bloomberg that, hey, by the way, we're competing against Swift. We're competing for their dominance in the space. I think a crosshair just was developed over Ripple, the company. And I think there were some things going on. So that's kind of where I left off. Now, from that point forward, I think it's interesting because this is where investors began to meet with the SEC and ask for a free pass on Ethereum. So this becomes where it gets, a little interesting, because here's Andreessen Horowitz organizes a meeting of Ethereum investors and lawyers with the SEC to lobby for a free regulatory pass to Ether, which was launched with an ICO in 2014 and has been sold in large quantities to investors for speculative purpose afterwards. Nathaniel Popper, reporter, tweeted that Andreessen Horowitz Venture Capital Working Group quietly met with the SEC to suggest that some virtual currencies be protected from the dreaded status of being a security. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's a lot of coincidences until the coincidences start adding up. And I think that's one of the things that John Deaton has beautifully chronicled here with this timeline. But not only that, but it's everybody in the space. The stuff DAI has been tweeting about. John Deaton constantly, every day, is finding another little tidbit, a little breadcrumb, a little trail. And I see that no matter what, it's like, well, that's kind of a coincidence. Well, yeah, it kind of looks like an impropriety. Well, it looks like Clayton voted when he should have recused himself. And it kind of looks as though, maybe Ethereum's not really decentralized. And it kind of feels like, so all these things start adding up, Jeff, and it looks to me like there's a lot of coincidences going on here as it start, as it's amazing, because once this got dropped last year and now we come to today, there's a lot of coincidences.
There really is. And I'm looking here. How is it that they could tweet out that regulators have indicated in private they were considering a free pass for Ether?
Yeah, that's just another coincidence, Jeff, and a long list of coincidences. Like,
right.
Well, I mean, maybe, and the funny thing about it is one of the most offensive 1 year long ICOs on the fundraising, which happened to come from the Ethereum Foundation, is like, wow, it doesn't really mean anything. Yeah, so what if they did it, right? So that's the weird part about it. It's not so much they got this free pass, Hinman mentioned them, but it's so blatantly obvious that they should have been on the hit list, right? Because second largest crypto, right? Everything, I mean, has a lot of DeFi around it, smart contracts, and then they go after, you look at, when was the Telegram ICO? When did that happen? When you had this one in 2014 and 2015. So it looks a little bit like, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of it. Sketchy is one of them. It just doesn't look right. It's not a good look. Sketchy. It's just hypocritical is another word. Looks very hypocritical. You go out to Telegram, which is kind of just like a little tiny, small cap coin, right? I mean, that's just one of them. But the whole funny thing is like the largest one, the elephant in the room, everyone's like, it's just not a big deal.
That's right. So Chip, then in 2018, April 2018, our buddy that taught over at MIT, because you can't forget Gary Gensler from MIT Business of Blockchain course. So former CFTC chairman Gary Gensler says there is not regulatory clarity in the digital asset market, and for Ripple, there needs to be clarity in the market. All right. So he then scoffs that a group of venture capitalists that went into the SEC, and how they're sort of saying, believe us, we get you, we're with you, SEC, but we have a bunch of clients who are going to evolve to be a consumable token. So I think this is an interesting one, so, I'm going to have to remove it because I forgot to, oops, what am I doing here? Remove. Stop. That's what I had to do. I had to reshare. I forgot to click the audio. So here we go. Let's bring this one up. So I think this would be interesting. Let's see here. Maybe it's this one. They come up in tweets. Let's see.
Time since, and it is basically U.S. law. Could it be?
Oh, hey, he loves the Howey test, right?
4-point test has been up to the Supreme Court numerous times since, and it is basically U.S. law.
Law.
Changed? Did Congress change something? Yes. But this is U.S. law.
Law.
For those of you that want to get up, walk out, throw me out of the room,
Yes.
just think throw.
Yes. Let's have a throwing contest. Who can throw Gary Gensler the furthest?
Bitcoin? Did somebody give you Ether when you're selling your token? Do you have a common enterprise? I probably made some news earlier this week saying I think Ether itself, or the Ethereum Foundation in 2014, passed this test. But that's in essence because they took Bitcoin for Ether. There was a common enterprise. I'm talking 2014, the Ethereum Foundation.
What?
There's a reasonable expectation of profits right in their offering. There was a 50% appreciation in the 42-day offering. And it was relying on the efforts and promoters of others. In essence, the Ethereum Foundation, or maybe a few months later when Joe Lubin set up Consensus, but on others. Now, the Securities Exchange.
What do you think about that?
I think he's the massive hypocrite. Of course, you know, whatever he said in his private life, Jeff, is private, has nothing to do with him being the chair of the SEC. They're going to pull some of that stuff. But yeah, it's so super guilty. Like, how can they not go after them next, Jeff? It's impossible to say. And I really do expect it. I expect, since Gensler has come out publicly and said there is no free pass to Bitcoin or Ether, I have a feeling they're going to come out and it's going to be a surprise attack, but they're going to come out and try to nail him for that. Otherwise, they will be known as the biggest hypocrites on the planet.
You think he's out Genslering Gensler?
He's out Gensler himself, Jeff. You're right. That's a good point.
Exchange Commission will sort that through, and they'll sort through not just the 1,000 ICOs, but they're actively looking at all the large cap tokens. And they should, because the market needs clarity. The uncertainty as to whether Ether is or is not a security, it could exist for months, but at some point in time, it's worthwhile to sort of settle that down or have it fall into the courts and have some district court or appellate court address it.
Yeah, but that's okay, Gensler. Keep going after something that's not clear. I'll tell you what. Your Ripple's attorneys, first thing you do, you say like, hey, let's put this on the big screen. We just had another famous trial. We watched a lot of video footage. You start putting a little montage of people like Gary Gensler talking about the fact that there's no clarity in the space, you know, that there was a common enterprise issue going on, expectation of a profit, and then say, well, number one, you didn't go after, you've been on the job since what, April? Been on the job since he's been in the chair since I think he was confirmed in March of 2021. I think he took over like mid-April, May, June, July, August. So he's been on there for more than 6 months, Jeff. And why is it that he expressed this but hasn't gone after the Ethereum Foundation for their ICO? And how come he hasn't sniffed around and realized that Ethereum's not that decentralized? And how come he didn't look at the mining pools that were happening mostly at one point in China? It was like 3, 4, 5 mining pools. And is it decentralized? Is it fully decentralized? And we have Joe Lubin talking about the fact that they knew it wasn't decentralized. They just had to get it out, right? So they released an average product out there. An average product, Jeff.
That's it. You know, so this is all just shocking, you know, as we look through, you know, all the different details of what's happening here. So then if we go just a little bit further, you know, we can dig in, then we can go in. I know we have a ton of stuff that we want to get into as we go through it, but as we go through it, look at, there's some really great commentary. But I think this was a good one because at the House Financial Services Committee hearing, Rep. Tom Emmer actually asked the SEC Director of Corporation Hinman for a specific definition on when a token is not a security, right? So they discussed the definition of utility token, which does not fit the description of Ether. Emmer asked what projects can do to improve regulatory clarity, enforcement action by the SEC. Hinman replies the SEC is meeting with participants with tokens that they believe shouldn't be regulated as a security and will work. So let's just see what he has to say here. This could be interesting, right? So hang on.
A token sale, as finances that come to mind that might render a token sale as something other than a securities offering?
The initial sale, it's quite hard to have an initial sale without having a securities offering, which is why the chairman has noted that the initial sale of these may require compliance or exemptions.
Let me ask you a question about that. Is it possible that a utility token would not be a security because it's not done for capital formation?
It is certainly possible that there are tokens that would not have the hallmarks of a security. And over time, many of these fundraisings are intended to develop networks where a token may be used to buy a good or service, and that's its only use. It doesn't have much utility.
No, I understand, but there's a
In
difference.
other senses.
If you can just, this is the difference. I mean, I get this all the time. People are suggesting that everything that is done in this area involves a currency or something like a currency or a security. But in fact, a security or a utility token is nothing more than a card, if you would, that will allow you access to a certain platform so that you can participate. Is it possible in your jurisdiction that that may not qualify as something that's a security offering?
We certainly can imagine a token where the holder is buying it for its utility and not as an investment. And in those cases, especially if it's a decentralized network in which it's used and they're not central actors who would have just information asymmetries where they know more than the investors in those tokens.
I got to get this in before my time runs out. You've stated that, quote, sponsors of offerings conducted through the use of a distributed ledger or blockchain technology must comply with the securities law, close quote. You also stated, quote, investors need the essential facts behind any investment opportunity so they can make fully informed decisions. How can we improve the regulatory clarity for entrepreneurs here in the United States so that their contribution to something that may not be a security will not see enforcement actions by the SEC?
I'll allow a quick reply.
One of the things we're doing is meeting with the participants who have these ideas that think that they may have a token that shouldn't be regulated as a security. We work through with them how that may be structured.
That's just the, you know what the problem is? They just don't know. They don't even know they don't even understand the technology. How are they going to deem it? And they keep going like these riddles and circles, Jeff. Well, I mean, if the token is this and the token is that, and Tom Emmer, God bless him for nailing him, was saying like, well, if it has utility, and how can it doesn't have a capital formation, then how is it a security? They've always got nothing. They've got no response. And the same thing when Tom Emmer basically interviewed Gary Gensler about 4 or 5 weeks ago, it was the same sort of thing, Jeff, where they just fumble around the answer instead of saying, that's a good question. I don't know. But no, they got to like, well, there's this and that. And well, we believe the security. Problem is that what are they basing it on? Personal opinion? Because it sounds like it. They don't have the clarity because there is no clarity in the space. And I think the CFTC is right. The fact is, what are they even doing? What is the SEC even talking about it if digital assets, which we believe they're not securities, they're commodities. So why are they even messing around with them? The CFTC has already deemed XRP a currency, as has the Department of Justice, also called it a currency. But the SEC's got all this clarity that they know what to rule on. If there's no clarity, then what are they ruling on, Jeff?
It's mind-boggling that we go back to the SEC and we go back to different representation within the SEC, and I feel like they're a broken record and they're kind of stuck in the one groove. And now Gary Gensler is saying the exact same thing that we heard. We're hearing from Hinman and Clayton that there's that from their perspective. They're basically saying, come on in, come meet with us. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to figure it out. And then they both come out and basically are addressing this fact that there's obvious clarity that, it's from their, but there isn't, we know that there isn't clarity. We know, but it seems like Clayton, Hinman, and Gary Gensler all went to the same school of clarity, and they all seem to have addressed it from a certain perspective. But I think you just brought up one solid point, and it's the same point that we're hearing from others. And I think it's the same point that Charlie Gasparino is talking about in many of his statements that we've seen coming out on Twitter. It's the same reference that John Deaton is discussing And it's the same that we heard from Tom Emmer and many others. But the fact is that they just don't understand, and that's what you just said, just a few minutes ago. They don't understand what the blockchain is. They don't understand, what these digital assets are. And they're just trying to piecemeal an idea together based on their opinion and what may or may not be good for the financial infrastructure, the brick and mortars that are around them. The people that they used to rub shoulders with. They're taking a lot of those same concepts and now they're trying to apply it to this space, and it doesn't fit exactly. And this is why Tom Emmer and Warren Davidson and many others are saying, hey, you know what? We need to put a little bit of an addendum on some of our understandings of maybe what a security is, or, maybe the IRS tax code of 1986, or maybe the Securities Exchange Act of 33 or 34, and put a little addendum to get a better understanding of what a digital asset is. And I think that's the point, versus what we saw just, a few minutes ago when we played Gary Gensler. He's even talking about the fact that this will probably have to end up in a court. There has to be a court decision on it. And so his idea from back in his days of MIT of enforcement is playing out with what he's doing over there now, but it's not drastically different than Clayton or Hinman's perspective. I think they're all coming from that same rule book.
Yeah, they are. And there's another piece too that I think ties beautifully into this. This is Mark Powers, and he raises a really good question, but I'll even take it a step further. Why aren't more law schools teaching blockchain, DeFi, and NFTs to counsel clients involved in the DeFi space? Wouldn't you want a lawyer with the technological literacy to understand blockchain and legal issues surrounding it? Which is great that he's asking this. He's an adjunct professor at Florida International University down here in Miami, and he worked on the Bernie Madoff case, some real high-profile cases. There's another big high-profile case he worked on. Let me see. What was the other one he worked on? Oh, yeah, Martha Stewart, the insider trading one. But he's asking a really good question here. And, the problem we're running into here is that when you look at someone like Hinman, who's an attorney, I believe also Clayton was an attorney, right? They're all attorneys, but none of them are trained in the space. By the way, this isn't the internet. Hey, I logged on to a website. I clicked www.something, and now I can see something in front of me. This is a lot, way, way, way deeper rabbit hole. So you've got decentralized finance. Just to say that doesn't mean you understand liquidity pools, and doesn't mean you understand yield farming, any of that. And meanwhile, they're not teaching this in law schools, and attorneys are having to learn this. And then we've got Congress, which is even further removed. A lot of times, and I'm not really going to blame it on age. I'm not a spring chicken, Jeff. We're not in our 20s, and we understand it, but you have to make the effort. And this is where a lot of the things I think are breaking down, is that as you have representatives going in Congress representing constituents back home, whatever state they're representing or whatever area, they don't have basic understandings, because most of them, I'd say probably 60% of them, 70% of them are attorneys. So they do have a level of education that, many don't have. But so what? I mean, if you don't know basic stuff and you don't realize what the country's struggling, they can't even recognize, Jeff, that there's a struggle going on right now in the U.S. And it's a really good piece, but he talks about, if you look at the value locked in DeFi, you've got $256 billion in just a very short period of time. Look at 2020. It was like almost no, you're talking about not even 5 billion, 2 billion, 1 billion locked up in DeFi. And look at how it's gone. And meanwhile, nobody understands it. And this is a big, big problem. It's a big, big deal. And he says many DeFi offerings and products closely resemble products and functions in a traditional financial marketplace. Market participants who raise capital from investors and provide regulated services or functions. In other words, aspects of DeFi likely involve the jurisdiction of multiple federal authorities, including the DOJ, the FCEN, Internal Revenue Service. Like, it's a lot deeper. So to just sort of just play it off like, well, I guess we'll just figure it out. Jeff, this is where we have the big breakdown. And it's really up to, it's great that everybody's reaching out to their representative, whether it's a senator, or their House representative, right? That's how it works in the U.S. You've got, the House of Representatives, and you've got the senators. There's 2 senators from every state, and they're representing you. And John Deaton did an awesome thing by reaching out and talk to them, contact them, let them know your story. But apparently not enough is getting through because they're still not taking it serious. They don't understand. I would say a good portion of them understand exactly why they don't want to get involved in blockchain, because it will build up the U.S. to be a powerhouse. And there's a lot of people, I know it's to sound weird, they don't want it. They want to tear it down. They want to rip it apart. And they want to let it bleed. And unfortunately, if they had the best interest of constituents and people looking for jobs, they would say, hey, this is a problem. Let's get together. Let's figure it out. Let's get into a room. Let's talk about it. Let's not pass things about these silly bills where it's going to sit in the Senate to have a conversation about talking about it. It's silly, Jeff.
Yeah, I think so. And an unknown idea saying, in my opinion, the reason they don't want to respond with a clear answer is because they really don't know. And all this trial situation is forcing the upper channels to provide clarity before the trial ends. Then he continues, they don't want the responsibility that comes if they answer, so there's obviously, there are a lot of elements to what's going on here. Now, if you take it one step further, and it's interesting because there's a lot of things that actually happened over this past week, not just in the US, but in other parts of the world. But this one did just happen, and it's a little bit shocking, right? So Jeremy Hogan, put this tweet out, and he's saying ADA holders beware. eToro didn't decide to lose money for no reason. The most likely reason to stop ADA trading for U.S. customers is a warning from the SEC. And if the SEC really wants to protect, ETH, as I've been reading, who would it sue next? And then if you go into the article here, it's interesting because eToro then delists Cardano for U.S. users, but Hoskinson says he was blindsided that eToro's announced it'll be delisting Cardano and Tron for U.S. users, and so it's interesting. Why are exchanges beginning to delist? And in this delisting, does it have anything to do with the SEC? Is the SEC then reaching out to exchanges and putting a little pressure on them for one reason or another? Is that a viable possibility to where they are, putting these exchanges into a corner? I don't know if that's the case or not, but I look at some of the comments. Charles Hoskins ruffled some feathers. SEC was activated to attack ADA. So, what do you think is going on with this? Is this, is the SEC really, going after Cardano at this point? And if they are, what is the ramification one way or the other? Well, let's say they are. What would the ramification be, if they are going after ADA at this point?
Why would they go after ADA at this point? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And why would eToro care? I mean, there might be something there. I think, Jeremy Hogan's bringing up a good point. But again, I mean, the most obvious one to go after is Ethereum. I mean, that's the most obvious one. I mean, they're going to get so exposed in this trial. When this goes to trial, they're going to get exposed. They're going to, I mean, if it goes to trial, the SEC v. Ripple case, because don't think that the attorneys aren't going to be playing all these videos and showing them what they said. And, you've got Hester Peirce saying, oh, there's no clarity. You got Elad Roisman, another commissioner at the SEC, 2 commissioners saying there's no clarity. You've got the ex-CFTC chairman. Back then was Gary Gensler. Now he's so you have all this stuff saying there's no clarity. I mean, and Roisman and Peirce saying there's no clarity as of July of 2021, not 2019, right? So this is, I think, going to be a big potential problem. But why, Jeff? Come on. After all this hammering on crypto Twitter and all these videos and YouTubers talking about it, and are you telling me that they're going to go after Cardano? Why? Well, how would Cardano be any different? I mean, I don't necessarily see it. Now, Tron, well, I mean, let's not talk about Tron, but I just like, Cardano itself, that can't be high in your list when you get looking at the most glaring one and obvious one is Ethereum Foundation with their ICO. And they can reason it away any way they want, But there was another tweet that I want to get to that Deaton put out today. It was just, I think before we went live, but I do think that it's not necessarily, when I look at what the SEC is going to go after, I mean, Jeff, we couldn't predict it. There's no way we could actually predict who they're going to go after. I don't think there's any way that anybody can predict it. Now, the obvious one, if we had to make a prediction based on what we know, yeah, I almost think that you'd have to say, well, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It would have to be Ethereum, right?
Yeah, you would think so. But at this point, definitely doesn't seem like they're going to. Yeah, what I find is interesting, while all these arguments and discussions are going on, within the SEC, we've got the EU is getting ready to approve 2 digital asset proposals for some clarity, for some regulation within the EU. The Bank of England said that 20% of commercial banking deposits could shift to a Bitcoin. They're dismissing stable coins and crypto. The UK is trying to get a little more aggressive with their CBDC, which kind of falls in line with this same thought process of what we're going to see kind of unfold or try to unfold in the US. But then with all of that going on, I find it most interesting is to see some of the business leadership in the world and how they respond to things. What do they say with digital asset and Bitcoin? So, and this is why I find it really telling the direction that we're moving in, because when you have these ultra wealthy individuals that are saying, hey, you know what, I'm moving into Bitcoin, I'm moving into digital asset, I see it as an escape from inflation, I see it as a safe hedge against what's going on for my money. I think this is the right place to be. I think this is a growth sector, one business person after another making those statements, and then we get these individuals in government that are trying to make claims to the contrary, but when they do that, who are they emboldening? Who are they? What kind of battle is going on behind the scene? But look at this. You have Mexico's 3rd richest billionaire, Ricardo Salinas Pliego, is advised investors to buy Bitcoin. He explained that the U.S. is looking more and more like any other irresponsible third world country, in terms of what they're doing with their economy.
And who's running the show, Jeff?
Exactly.
Right off a cliff. Yeah, he's absolutely, he's 100% spot on. It's looking like a third world country.
It's amazing, man. I mean, it really is. Look, good old USA is looking more and more like any other third world, like any other irresponsible third world country. Wow, look at the scale of fake money creation by Bitcoin right now. And it's you get some of these discussions, and we know what's going on over in El Salvador. We know the difficulty that they're facing right now as well. From the IMF is becoming outspoken. The Bank of England is now coming after El Salvador for what they're doing with this move into Bitcoin. But while they're doing that, then you have what I was just saying with the Bank of England talking about that they want to move into a Bitcoin. So obviously there's some competition there, but at the Bank of England chief is also saying that Bitcoin is too volatile to be adopted as legal tender, as a direct reproach against the president of El Salvador. So you're getting some individuals in the banking space, in the IMF, non-government agency, that is attacking the president of El Salvador and trying to demean him and his intelligence and his move into Bitcoin for his country. So there's all the power plays that are being that we're seeing unfold right now. To me, it's astonishing, and we're only seeing they're just scratching the surface of all these power moves right now, and we're going to see more and more of it, and we're going to see more tension.
Well, I think the real question, we talk a lot about following the money, but I think the real question to ask is if some entity, the IMF, the Federal Reserve, you name any central bank, if they're upset and they're coming out with a statement that says X, ask yourself this question: is there a direct threat to them? If the answer is yes, then you understand exactly why they're saying it. The IMF is done. As it is right now, it's poorly set up. It's mostly funded by, you know, the richer countries in the world. I mean, the U.S. is a big funder of the IMF, as is Germany and, you know, the U.S. and, you know, Australia, right? So, and they have this whole organization. A lot of people working there to figure out who they're going to distribute money to countries that need it. But now they're doubling down on, well, we really shouldn't have Bitcoin as a currency, which I find to be just idiotic as all hell. But it does hit them. This is the tweet that I was looking for before. So John Deaton says, people who say the SEC is likely to win rarely define what they mean by a win. Is a win a settlement where Ripple pays 25 to 50 million? Is a win a judgment by the court that finds sales between 2013 to 2015 were securities, but sales today are not? And Jeff, this is really important too, because, you know, we have a bet with Alex Coining 203 and Mr. B for a steak dinner. Where they believe there's going to be a settlement, and we say, well, no, there's not going to be a settlement. As Brad Garlinghouse defined it, that they've tried to settle before they dropped the lawsuit. They probably tried to settle during the lawsuit, but he said the only way they would settle is if there was absolute clarity. Now, that could have been dropped on day one back in December of 2020. They could have come out and said, yes, we are going after the sales of 2013 to 2015. However, we do not believe, not too dissimilar to what Bill Hinman said in his 2018 Yahoo speech, that today's XRP, with its multiple use case and decentralized nature, is not a security. Well, then who would have cared about this case, Jeff? Nobody. They could have said that, but without that clarity. So John Deaton's raising two good points here. Is a win a settlement where Ripple pays 25 to 50 million? Well, if they prove that, in fact, they did sell it on unregistered security back then, but we also know over time things become decentralized. They run, I think, 7 or 8%. I know more people are picking up nodes these days, so they might have 7%. They don't have voting, so whatever is voted in, when there's an amendment put forth on the XRPL, the Ripple has no say in the matter. And also with regard to the escrow, how the escrow is done. They could put all kinds of amendments, like an amendment that says burn the escrow. And that worked out so well for Stellar. I mean, I don't know that anyone's really thinking about that as an option. But the point is Ripple doesn't have much say in what happens to a lot of what's going on as far as the direction. And if they go away tomorrow, then it's pretty much over. And that's one of the things we have. One of the quotes from Garlinghouse that's on our website. It says, if you own a security, it gives you ownership of a company. If Ripple goes away, XRP will continue trading. Now, that's spot on, Jeff, right? I mean, XRP has nothing to do at this point whether Ripple succeeds or not, because there's plenty of use case for it.
No, exactly. You know, I agree with that. I mean, that's it, you know, the bigger picture. You know, that's a big point, you know, with everything, you know, as this begins to, you know, really unfold. But, you know, I'm looking at all this. I say, hey, there's all this serious stuff going on. There's serious growth within Ripple. You know, there's serious growth within the crypto space. There's serious growth rolling out, talking about side chains and you know, building out, you know, a stable coin, or at least some sort of a not central bank digital currency for, what was that country, Palau, and, you know, all these different, all these different amazing things happening, you know, architecturally speaking, within the blockchain, all these other companies popping up. And then, you know, it just is kind of like a sideline note to everything that we're talking about. What in the world is this? Like, what? I don't understand. I mean, you know, David Schwartz posts a lot of funny things. What is this? Like this? Like nothing else.
But you have to read the Ari Cohn.
The whole thing.
Read it. There's a thread there. So he's talking about that. He's pointing out that
people talk a big game about being principled, where others are not, should expect to be, and indeed welcome being held accountable on those claims.
Yeah, we'll scroll up because it's a thread.
Okay. I guess it's ridiculous to question the credibility of the free inquiry bona fides of an organization who puts opponents of free inquiry on their board and whose founder downplays it by saying, well, she just doesn't think it should be studied. in a way she doesn't like.
Yeah, well, he's commenting on a tweet that we don't have access to because that person limited access to who is the person? T. Lonsdale, I don't know who that is.
T. Lonsdale, you're unable to view it because this account. So now he's tweeting on this tweet that nobody can read and don't understand the actual flow. Oh, and now
there it is, Joe Lonsdale. There it is.
Oh, here it is. Okay, and now I'm blocked. I guess Jay Lonsdale also doesn't appreciate inquiry into the credibility of whoever that is, claimed to be an institution for free inquiry.
Yeah, so he was basically calling him out on something, right? So
yeah, here we go. Here, right before he blocked me, he's casting aspersions on people who are actually concerned about free inquiry and academic freedom. If that gives you sense of grift. So many people on this site are mentally unwell. I doubt any of the people up in arms over the views of an advisor here have built anything in the real world. So that's where it started. So, but it amazes me still. So we're going through all this stuff, right?
Right.
Then,
but his basic point there is, if you've not built anything, you don't have the freedom to talk about it. So that's just ridiculous, right? The premise is ridiculous. That's why he's saying any inquiry. It's like, oh, well, suppose I built Google. Now, am I credible? Can I be a credible critic now because I built Google, or I built a blockchain organization, or I got a blockchain project? Now I can comment on it. It's just silly. It's a silly thing.
Yeah. So I was just looking through. I mean, it was just funny. I see this pop up. I'm like, what in the world? What of all these great things happening?
Hey, shout out to Trap Line. He says, hit the likes and share, people. Thank you to Chip and Jeff. Thanks so much for your work. Gary. Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's the 589, baby, right there. Yeah, the big 589.
There you go.
So, Jeff, since we're on the topic of David Schwartz, I want to throw this up because sometimes you can read into stuff and make it your own tweet. So every once in a while, an idea pops in my head. Tony Edward of Thinking Crypto says, hey, are any of you delegating your Songbird tokens? Are you using the Bifrost wallet? He puts SGB there. And then David Schwartz says yes and yes. And I thought, that's interesting. No. I go, those are two potential answers to number one, do you watch on the chain? Yes. And two, will you appear as a guest on the chain? Yes. So there's two potential answers right there. Yes. And then you can do it, David Schwartz. You can do it. You can do it. Yes and yes. Okay. There you go.
Yes, perfect.
There it is. Do you want it on the chain? Will you appear as a guest? Yes and yes. Of course, he wasn't replying to me, or he was replying to Tony. But I thought that was just something fun to mess around with.
Yeah, that was great. And riding on Tony's tweet.
And he will continue to ignore us. It's like, why would you ever come on a channel that focuses much of its efforts on promoting the goodwill and nature of one of the best decentralized assets out there that reduces friction in cross-border payments? Why would you want to come on a show like that? But you can go on a show where they absolutely call XRP the S-coin word and laugh about it and joke about it. But go on that show. That makes sense to me. I mean, why not?
Well, of course. Yeah, why not go there? That makes the most sense.
Yeah, go on that show.
So here's Cryptographical saying, serious question. If XRP really is going to be used as a bridge currency for the whole world, how is the market supply not already been bought up? I seriously wonder about this.
Well, the market supply has been brought up. Actually, Jeff and I talked about all the money, and when you look at everything that would require movement across the world, we looked at it all, and it's like you look at gold as such a minute. It's like it's a blip on the radar. When you look at the derivatives market, you look at everything. We should do that again, Jeff. Go through the history of that, because that one site we came upon really had it all mapped out. So when you look at that, yeah, is there enough supply? There is, and this is where people, I think, inaccurately get this whole thing with escrow and get so caught up on the escrow. But there was an interview that Tony Edward did with Monica Long where she addressed this point, where she talked about that institutional buyers can source XRP directly from Ripple. So you need first of all, you're going to need the on-demand liquidity for the product. I mean, it's a really good question, but you're going to need a lot. That's why I'm saying when you go like 100 million, why would you ever want to burn any of that supply? Because it's going to be needed. And that's where we talked about when Jeff and I kind of took us through the history of all the potential movement out there. And that's another reason why XRP wasn't designed to be $1 or $10 or $100. It just wasn't, right? So if you're going to move all the money, it has to have, and David Schwartz has talked about this before. They didn't design it to be worth, pennies. They designed it to be, somewhat at some point stabilized, where 3 to 4 seconds you move it, the value is not going to go up or down or change too much. Not like it would be where, Jeff, I think you addressed this last week, where was it Turkey or something like that? Maybe it was another something, but Turkey stopped sales of any Apple products because there was so much fluctuation in the currency. You'd order it 3 days later, that currency could have dropped by 40%. So they had to stop doing orders over there. It's something that I think we're just scratching the surface of, but it's going to come in time. And again, a lot of it's going to probably happen as soon as this lawsuit ends favorably.
Yeah, there we go. So Legendary is saying that Schwartz won't come on this channel because the channel is simply growing.
That's a good
slow.
point. Well, I wouldn't blame him for that. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't blame him for that. He's like, come on, man. You guys are the slowest growing YouTube channel. Why would I come on that
Spin
channel?
City was saying that it was bought up, not brought up. But why aren't they buying up all the market supply already? Based on that. But I think you brought up some really good points as well. Is that how are you going to buy up all the market supply, and who's gonna buy it up? And there's a lot more to that equation. But very easy. Hydroponics. Alan is saying he'll come on after the SEC case, and this show will blow up because they've all known that we've been talking about the best digital asset all along. So there we go. So
there you go. I want to give a big shout out. Craig DeWitt has been impressing me with his tweets lately. He is Craig DeWitt. He goes by @CryptoCowboy. Okay, so that's important to this next tweet. He's the product. He runs product over at Ripple, and I just love some of his tweets lately. But this one is fantastic. We got to get Craig to come on here, but this one is fantastic. So
Craig would be cool.
So Kevin O'Leary. Dennis Leary is a comedian, but Kevin O'Leary, who's Mr. Wonderful from that show, what's it called, Jeff? I don't remember the name of the show.
Shark Tank.
Shark Tank, there, right. So he's also a big investor. He's also on every business channel all the time. He says he's got zero. He says he has zero interest in being a crypto cowboy. Doesn't recommend it. He thinks this thing with the SEC, it's too volatile. So he's not interested in being a crypto cowboy, which makes this tweet so brilliant. @CryptoCowboy says no interest in being a crypto cowboy. Kevin O'Leary. And then he puts on the Sean Connery from Highlander, and there can be only one. Right? So there can be only one crypto cowboy, and that is obviously Craig DeWitt. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. And then you tell them Highlander kitty style. And then there's this one here. There can be only one. This is the quickening, whatever. There's can only be one. And there's a lot of good little tweets to this, but yeah. Don't lose faith, blah, 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 blast off. But there's right. There can only be one crypto cowboy, and Craig DeWitt. What? Just bam, the humor. Love it.
Dude, here's someone we haven't seen forever. Crypto Insomniac. He runs a Telegram channel, has a YouTube channel. We just haven't seen Crypto Insomniac on for a long time.
Insomniac?
Insomniac.
I was like, some of your pronunciations are great, Jeff.
Insomniac.
They really are fantastic. And
it's my lighting. My lighting is throwing me off today. It's like every time it gets a little bit darker.
Yeah, well, that can happen, Jeff. And then this one too. I want to throw this one up here. This is good. This is by Naval. If you don't follow @Naval, it's brilliant stuff comes out of this. But this one's valid reasons for selling. You've completely lost faith in the project. That hasn't happened. You can redeploy into a better investment after accounting for headwinds from tax. It accounts for too much of your net worth, or you have a worthwhile personal expenditure to make. Like, hey, how should I sell this? I got to make something. I got to buy a new Lambo. Okay, we'll sell for profits and buy the Lambo. So anyway, that's
a good one.
It's a good one. There's
buy
some good stuff
a new
there.
Lambo.
Get a new Lambo.
My old Lambo just isn't good enough, so I got to buy a new one.
Jeff.
Buy a new one.
It's not good enough.
After hanging out on the beach for the past couple of days, I realized that all this crypto asset stuff has to moon because I need to get a boat. Because hanging out on the intercoastal and watching all these people, coast by on their boats, how cool that is.
Yeah.
But then
well,
I also realized that if I was to drive this boat and have to park it in front of a restaurant like so many of these people do, I would have to practice that docking technique at least 1,000 times before I docked it into a restaurant filled with people.
Well, Jeff, there's a famous phrase that boat owners often recite. The happiest 2 days of your life, the day you buy the boat and the day you sell the boat, right?
Exactly.
The day you buy it, the day you sell
exactly.
it. But it's great to have friends with boats, Jeff. That's the greatest thing. Like I have friends that have boats.
That is
When we
the
go on the
greatest
boat,
thing.
yeah, okay, I'll pay for half the gas. I'll do all this stuff. I'll bring the food. You go out, you have a great time. It's a lot of fun. And I'm done. I'm out. It's like the best thing ever.
Right.
So we just got these more friends. They got to have some crypto friends down here that have boats, and
We got to figure that out.
we can do a stream from the boat. We'll have a little fun, a little bit of do some little whiskey, some wine and cheese. We'll have a little fun time. It'd be awesome. And then Sean Thompson asked a very important question here: is who's down with OTC?
Hell yeah!
What's up, Sean Thompson? Good to see you, my man.
Up.
Smash the likes. That's right. Smash
Sean
those
T.
likes. Yeah, I really like that. And Jeff, where does the time go, man? It's really incredible how the time
always
goes.
flies.
Great to see Sir John on here. Right there. Don't buy a boat. Never enough investing in it, no matter how small. Yeah.
That
There
is
you go.
true.
Lou. I don't know what that means, but
If you do get a boat, we got to check out, go up to Canada, go hang out.
yeah, I like boats boats are fun. When I was in my youth, I had a buddy who had a 42-foot sailboat. We went out like 2-3 times a week, enjoyed ourselves, had a great time. And, I don't know, it was like a lot of fun for a couple of years, just boating and just, sailing. It was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, but XRP Speedboat knows his stuff. So we'll, maybe that's it. Just go hang out in Canada.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, you might, Rabbit. You might.
Yeah.
You might, Rabbit.
So Chip, one of the things that I've noticed, people, they're always asking how they can help support the channel. One way is just by shouting us out over on Twitter. That definitely helps out a lot. The other way is to go check out the website, because a lot of things go on over on the website. One of those things is that we actually show our schedule, our broadcasting schedule. So you go check out the website and I say, hey, you know what? It's in print. It's true that On the Chain streams Sunday through Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But the one thing that you can also do is actually subscribe. And when you do that, throw your email in. We don't do any email spam, nothing like that. But you will at the end of a show. If you miss the show, you'll get an email and it'll have some of the links to the articles that we cover. It'll have our podcast link. It'll have the video link. So everything is self-contained over on the website. Plus, you can always go back and check out interviews and videos and everything. You don't have to go scrounging around over on YouTube. You can find everything very neat on one page or one place, all on the website. Very, very cool. So I just want to give a little plug for On the Chain website. And Chip, with that, there's a lot going on this week. We do have what do we got going on this week?
Well, I don't know, Jeff. Well, I think we're gonna have a guest on probably Tuesday night. I got to confirm with that. We have a guest coming on, somebody big in the crypto space who's just crushing it. Also a new YouTuber as well. But I'm just going to confirm the day and time. It's going to be Tuesday or probably Wednesday. We can work that in, so that'll be there, which would be great. And that's it. That's all I have.
That's it, man. This is an awesome show. Shout out from Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Nice.
Manitoba.
Yeah, there's Dakota Shipley on here live. Good to see that.
With the OTC.
Toronto, Canada. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Toronto.
I like Toronto.
I grew up on the other side of that lake. Yeah, it is. Cool people, cool music, cool everything. Doesn't have enough cool things. And the Hockey Hall of Fame, Jeff. What else can be cool?
We should buy one.
Why not? We'll just
buy an aircraft carrier, get that XRP Army air support for all those airdrops that are incoming.
That's right. A lot of those are incoming.
And make sure, Chip, what is today? Just a quick note on our way out of here, but the Vagabond airdrop is going to be happening. And that means the snapshot is happening December 1. And as those snapshots happen. It's up to 1,000 XRP matched with 1-to-1 for VGB. Now, they do cap out at a certain point. So not sure how many people have registered already for that airdrop. But if you haven't, you might want to go check that out. Go check out your Zum, your Bifrost, or whatever wallet you're using, and you can check that out. Check it out.
Check on the mic. Check 1, 2, check 2.
That's it, Chip. That's all I got for tonight.
That's all I have too. It was a great, fast show. I mean, everybody wishing you guys a great week. I know the Aussies are already starting early. It's like early in the morning there. Time to crank up that barbecue and get everything ready for the week. Let's do that. And that's all I have. So, guys, we'll see you tomorrow night. We'll see you on the next one. Chip and Jeff are out. See you.
Out.
Bye.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.